I just want to share with you a letter that went out in 1959 on September 16th. Okay, this letter was sent to our entire congregation by Mrs. Marty Sowald and Mr. Al Shamus. And Shane.
Sorry.
I wasn't there, yeah.
I was barely there.
Dear congregant, you've heard of the mammoth project we're bringing to you between October 5th and 8th, known as Religious Emphasis Week. Needless to say that this is an unprecedented event in our community. In the words of our Rabbi Stavsky, this shall be a week of hisorus, religious revival, bringing the message of God to all of us, so that we may stand before the Lord with rededicated spirit, penitence, and faith to receive a year of health and happiness. And those words hold true exactly 55 years later, continuously 55 years later, if I'm not mistaken. Today, Rabbi Stavsky innovated this program to make the period of time which we find ourselves in meaningful and relevant, translated to contemporary society, and that we stand in the Aseret Shemei Tshuva, we gather tonight to glean a little bit of inspiration, so that we may go into the new year and Yom Kippur with on a high, if you will. So these stand together, and I was not there, but if anybody wants to know who was there, I actually have a record of every single person who signed in that week. For all of you know, Rabbi Stavsky was a meticulous note-taker, and everyone who signed in was there. So if anybody would like to see that after, it's pretty incredible. Or your grandparents. But that's fun. I want to recognize tonight, before we go on, I want to recognize Rabbi Henoch Morris, the Rosh Kollel, who's with us tonight, as well as the head of the Federation, Gordon Hecker, and the head of the Foundation, Jackie Jacobs. We really appreciate your presence here tonight. And without further ado, I will give you our speaker. We are very, very privileged tonight to have Charlie Harary. You know, people say that rabbis...
Turn off your cell phone.
Turn off your cell phone, please. People say that, people have heard a lot from rabbis over the last few weeks, especially Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur coming up. So the good news is tonight's not a rabbi. It's a lawyer, I don't know. That's better enough, but we have Charlie Harary. It's really a very special privilege to have Charlie with us tonight. Charlie is one of the most sought after and well-known speakers in the Orthodox world in the United States. Charlie speaks to many, many organizations and businesses and yeshivas and organizations and outreach organizations on the topics of Judaism and growth. And he's really, really very inspirational. You can go on his website, you can go on aishatorah.com, and you'll be inspired. So that's what I'm hoping that we gain tonight. We gain a little bit of inspiration. I'm sure Charlie will definitely provide. Charlie is a clinical professor of management and entrepreneurship at the Sim School of Business and Yeshiva University. He's also a senior lecturer for the Orthodox Union, Aisha Torah, and NCSY. And he really, really has inspired so many Jews throughout the world. It's a really tremendous privilege to give you tonight, Charlie Harary.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for bringing me here. It's truly an honor to be here. I'll tell you a little bit before I start about why this is such a special night for me. When I was first starting, I got out of college, someone came up with this idea that maybe I should get involved with this organization called NCSY. I never heard of it before. In fact, I grew up in Brooklyn. I didn't even know anything existed beyond the Belt Parkway. I didn't realize there were communities out there. And someone said, why don't you go out to this region called Central East? I said, why? There's people in Detroit. I said, well, sure. So I get on a bus and I go 24 hours to Cleveland, Ohio. And I see some of the people that are sitting in the room right here. And I get there and it was amazing. People were dancing and singing and talking. I'd never seen this before. So I stay involved for the year. And I was in Columbia at the time and they were sort of telling me, like, it's time to grow up. Like, you're going to work for a big law firm. Like, you don't do outreach programs when you're a lawyer. And I got a job in a white shoe type law from Davis Polk and Morgwell. And that first week or two there, they said, it's been a pleasure you being a college guy, but it's time to, getting married. You have a real job now. No more getting involved in the community. So I said, maybe they're right. So I called up the regional director, who still at the time, Solly Friedman. And I said, thank you for the year or two of good times, but I'm out. He goes, what do you mean? I said, no, aren't you supposed to grow up and grow out of this stuff? So he goes, why don't you come back one more year? I said, fine, I'll give you one more year. And what he did that year was, we were in 3 locations. We were in Columbus, we were in Cleveland, and we were in Detroit. And I believe, and he'll deny it, he put me by people's houses that will show me that part of the responsibility of a Jew is to never leave a community. I don't care what you do for a living, you never leave a community. And the first person that he put me by was Rabbi Stavsky. I stayed by the Reverend Rebbitzon's house, I'll never forget it. I think it's up that way, if I remember correctly. And it was snowing, which is probably about right. And I woke up that morning, and I'll never forget, I expected the rabbi to be like, I don't even know who you are, you're a little kid, see you in shul. And he waited for me in the morning, and he made me some drink. I don't remember what it was in it. If it was root beer or some kind of soda with other things in it, whatever it was. When the rabbi says drink, I say sure. And then we took a walk to shul, and he told me about Shlomo Kalbach, and he told me about this community. And I remember getting to shul, my wife was in the women's section, and I remember seeing an individual who cared so deeply about other Jews. And I'll never forget that feeling, that Shabbaton right here. And over here they were playing music. And I said to my wife, I don't know if we can make it work and speak and work, but one thing that I know is I can never leave our community because I'm around people that show me what it's like to be a community member. And so I have a tremendous amount of gratitude to the Stavskys and to this community. And it's, in some ways, you don't know me, you've probably never seen me before, but it's like I'm coming home in a way. It's like a little bit of a homecoming here. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for being here. It's really... Okay, thank you. You've been great. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. We'll go back to New York now. Now that we've made our connection. So let me just take this away from a podium. We can just talk regularly. So this is the period of time. My mother's a psychologist, which explains a lot, but that's for another conversation. And we talk a lot, and she tells me some of her tricks that she uses on her patients. Anyone who's in psychology knows this is one of the oldest tricks in the book. She tells me about one of the things she does called word association. She'll sit with somebody, and they have all these problems. And many times, the problems they have are that they're not expressing the real problems. And they're masking it with words or ideas. So what she'll do is say, I'm going to say a word, you give me your gut reaction. Don't think, no right answers. And she'll say, mother-in-law. But then whatever comes out, comes out. And she'll say like all these words, and as a result, people will express how they really feel. If we were to play word association tonight, and I would say holiday, what would you say? Food. 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 Good times. Drink. Food. Food. Right? Family, maybe, if they don't get in the way. Food. But what would we say for Yom Tov? We would think, having a good time and dressing nicely and eating well and the kids over the house and seeing your parents. We would picture, we would associate with fun. I would say Yom Kippur. What's our reaction? I can't wait for it to be over. It's almost over. Oh, no, I really care about it. Yeah, sure. Torture. I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble. I'm really not that great this year. Torture. Right? What's the best night of the year for the Jew? The night after Yom Kippur. Why? Because the largest part on the calendar is the next Yom Kippur. You know what I'm talking about? We all feel that way, right? You sit down after your second day, you're like, wow, I gotta do this for another year? I'm sorry, God, I mean, I really want to. Not. Am I wrong? Or is it just me? Our association, can I talk about that? Our association with Yom Kippur is not holiday. There's a famous Mishnah in Tanis that says the following. The rabbis teach us, Lo hayu yamim tovim liYisrael. There weren't any greater holidays for Israel. Techamisha asar ba'av, on the 15th of Av, which is the day that they would usually get together and get married. They were always into marrying off their kids then too. Nothing changes. and Yom HaKippurim. No better holiday than Yom Kippur. No better time. When you would go back to those rabbis and go, word association, holiday, they would go, Yom Kippur. And the question that I have for tonight is, are they serious? Is that like before TV, like that was fun? Like what happened? Really? How in the world can we understand that they were actually thinking that there was a holiday that was exciting called Yom Kippur? And how come our reaction to Yom Kippur seems to be meaningful? I got it. You want to tell me there were no more meaningful days, okay? You want to tell me there were no more purposeful days, okay? But no more happier days? What in the world are they saying? And how have we been so far from thinking this way? So I want to talk a little bit tonight about why Yom Kippur is arguably the happiest day of the year. And I hope that by the time we're done, we can understand a little bit what was in the minds of the rabbis when they said, holiday, top of the list, Yom Kippur. So let's talk about Yom Kippur. Because many of us think Yom Kippur is the day of the appellate court, right? Judgment, you show up Rosh Hashanah, and it's the trial court. And you do good, usually, the tzaddikim, the righteous one, like, they're okay, we're not there. And the bad guys, like, and then the rest of us are still like bumping around the bottom in the middle, you know what I'm saying? We're Benoni. And then maybe get FD, we go back and forth all week. Okay, maybe, and we don't know what we're doing, right? It's like, we don't even know what we're judging, because we don't have the same sense. It's like, maybe it's like color work, and you scream a little louder, we pray a little louder, and we're not so sure, we're in the book of life, we hope it's a good book, and we're like asking, we're not really sure what's going on. And the whole week, we don't really know what we're doing. And then we get to the final day, right? We get to the appellate court. And then finally, at the appellate court, for those that are still left, God makes his final judgment. That's sort of how we see it, right? Doesn't that make any sense? Why do we have appellate courts? When I was in law school, they taught us, very simply, in order to make sure you have a just society, you have to make sure there's something called checks and balances. You can't trust one court, because they may be biased, or they may be wrong. So you create courts on top of courts to check the work of those that are below them. But if God's the judge on the first court, and God's the judge of the appellate court, what do you need two courts for? It's the same guy on the bench. If he's God and he is all-knowing, he doesn't need an appellate trial. First day, he should have owned it. He knows exactly what he's doing. He calls us out. It should be like the morning of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and we call it a day. We're in, we're out, Like it's game over. We need like an entire trial system. What's going on over here? So the answer is that Yom Kippur is not a day of judgment. Yom Kippur, no judgment takes place in Yom Kippur whatsoever. Yom Kippur is an entirely separate day. Yom Kippur is not a day of judgment, it's a day of atonement. And what do I mean? So there's a great rabbi named the Ramchal. The Ramchal wrote a book called Derech Hashem. And in that book, he laced into some of the most deepest principles of how Judaism works. And here's what he says. The entire world is built on light. We live in a world and we think the world is physical, but according to Jewish thought, it's not. The world is actually spiritual. If I took liquid and put it in front of us, and we went to a lab, and I moved it towards a fire, it would turn into vapor. If I moved it towards a freezer, it would turn into ice. The properties are the same. Even though I'm moving them and they're changing, what's happening is the distance to fire changes how they look, although the molecules react differently to each other, but it's the same property, it's water. We live in a world that we think there's a spiritual world and there's a physical world. Not true. There's one world. As that person, that soul, gets closer to the source, to God, to light, the godly light, that thing feels like a soul. As that person is constricted and either more distant from God, it comes out and congeals into a physical form. But the world as we know it is just refractions of light. And the goal of the Jew, the goal of what we're trying to do with holidays, is that every single time period has a different light, a different property. For sometimes it's freedom, for sometimes it's knowledge, for sometimes it's repentance. And throughout the entire, in fact, every time of the day has different light, which is why the way we pray in the morning is different than night. The seventh day is different than the first six. The beginning of the month is different than the rest of the month. Because all we're trying to do is find the spiritual outlet, to tap into the light, to change who we are. I'll never forget, my kid once asked me, Daddy, what's voltage? And I tried to tell him, here's how it works. We got plugs in the house. Back when I grew up, we actually plugged things in. Now everything plugs in just chargers. Back we actually plug stuff in the wall. And you can plug it in, and it'll turn on. But if I took the lights out of Yankee Stadium and brought it into our house, and I plug it in, it won't turn on. We may have electricity, but the voltage isn't high enough. There are moments throughout the year where we have very specific voltage. And our goal and our challenge is to figure out what that voltage is and tie into it, because if we could, we change. We somehow think that Judaism is commemorative, as if, like a long, long time ago, like for the first time in Jewish mother history, they thought of like getting out of Egypt as opposed to cooking bread, and like they forgot to bake the bread, so now we're stuck forever with bad bread. As if. I don't know. Why we need this for 8 days? I don't know, because mom forgot. Thanks, mom. Next time when you're about to leave jail, make sure you cook the bread earlier the night before so we have what to eat along the way. And so that's what we're doing in forever and ever, as if it's commemorative, but it's not. At that moment in time, it was something happened and light was shown. And forever and ever, God says, do this, say this, show up here. Because what you're trying to do is behind the curtain of the physical world is something. It's an electricity. It's a voltage called freedom. And if you understand what matzah is and why all these things that I'm doing is I'm trying to get you to find the outlets that you can plug in so that we can feel different. We can be bigger people. So what is the voltage of Yom Kippur? So what happened? Remember what happened in Yom Kippur? Remember the story? God, Jews, Mount Sinai. First ever real shidduch. Everything's going great. God goes, what do you think? And we go, I do. And he goes, awesome. And Moshe goes, here's the deal, guys. I got to go up the mountain. I'll be back in 40 days. Remember the story? Right? I come from a very interesting background. My father is from Syria. He's Sephardi. My mother is from Munkach. She's Ashkenazi. Which makes me a walking United Nations. With better resolutions. Everything that I eat either has rice in it or margarine. That's my life. So I get what's happening next. Here's what happens. Here's how I see the story. Moshe's up on the mountaintop. He's a little bit late. All the Ashkenazi Jews are going, where is he? He's late. He's late. Where is he? Where is he? He's late. He's late. And they're going to tell him that Moshe is Sephardi. And when you're Sephardi, if you're there on the same day, you're there on time. That's how